Welcome to the Assessment in Practice Lecture 9. In this lecture, we will talk about preparation and interview. We will talk about all assessment steps and improvement steps which are necessary to be incorporated in an assessment process. Let's start from the assessment phases. In the assessment process, we are differentiating two assessment phases. One is assessment itself, and another one is improvement after assessment, which is often forgotten. The assessment phase has three sub-phases. First is preparation for the assessment, which is involving all the stakeholders. Then the second one is performing the assessment, also involving all the stakeholders. In the third subphase, we have issuing the assessment report, and this is part which is basically only related to the assessor and co-assessors. In the improvement after assessment, we also have three subphases, as I said. In the first subphase, we need to agree on all the process improvements. In the second subphase, we need to perform the improvement actions. All the improvement actions must be tracked. And in the third subphase, we have the tracking of the process improvement. The whole process is not finished till we don't have all the process improvements closed or somehow done in the way that they are incorporated in the PDCA cycle. Now let's check assessment phases furthermore. In the preparation of the assessment, we have two sub-phases. Initialization of the assessment. Then we need to have the assessment agreement. In the performing the assessment, we will have the introduction, interview, and document checks. And we will have, of course, consolidation and the feedback and evaluation. Issuing the assessment report includes drawing up the assessment report and drawing up the assessment log. All these phases can be done for any kind of the assessment. It is not important that it is a SPICE assessment or it is, for example, ISO 26262 assessment. This is something which will happen eventually in any kind of assessments. In the phase of the preparation of the assessment, the first thing is that we need to know what are the assessment roles, like who is the sponsor and who is the assessment team lead and who is the co-assessor or co-assessors. This is important because we need to align in between assessment participants, what is the schedule, and what are the other things which are important on the beginning. Also, we need to know what is the assessment scope. For example, the type of assessment, the class that we talked about, the type, the highest capability level that we want to reach, and how many process instances will be under assessment. This is related to the initialization of the assessment. In the assessment agreement subphase, the confidentiality agreement is signed in between all those involved parties. Of course, very important thing is that before assigning such an agreement, we need to have the schedule agreed. Additionally, in this phase, we need to have storage of knowledge about the storage of received documents, work products during the assessment. Then assessment tool. For example, what are the tools that we will use? What are the file naming, headlining? What are the versioning? What is the backup that we will use? Then we need to know what is the decision-making process during rating. Also, work split in the assessment is very important. Who is the interviewer for which process? Then we need to know how we will organize the way how notes are taken. Then organizing report preparation and similar stuff. The very important part is also how consolidation will be done into the round of the assessors. In this phase of the assessment, we have the real interview. In performing the assessment phase, the first thing is introduction. In this period, all the participants must be known and all the prerequisites, all the preparations must be done. It means that the team lead assessor will present what is the schedule, what is the scope, and inform all of the participants how assessment will go. Then this uh, period of time for the introduction is important because all the stakeholders are presented, and the company which is under assessment can give a short introduction of how business units or the whole company is organized. Also, it is important that in this period, the whole setup is in the way that all the participants are communicating with each other, that there is a friendly atmosphere, and which will be then maintained till the end of the assessment. In the interview and document checking phase, which is basically the crucial for the assessment, we have the lead assessor who is asking the questions and the co-assessors who are taking the notes. Usually, lead assessors are not taking the notes, only when they are not asking, when they are not questioning, they need to write the notes. Because co-assessors are also the ones who can ask the questions in the interview sessions. Then in the interview, beside the answering on the questions and beside of checking what are the processes which are implemented on the project, there are some possible reviews of the work products. Usually the products which will be checked on the assessment are, for example, product documents like technical specifications in the V model, like release notes and similar. Then project documents like project plans, strategies, test plan, and similar things. Also, it is possible that assessor will check reports, records, measurements, minutes of meeting, and also emails. Then in the one part of the assessment, it could be that the whole assessment, the whole part of the assessment will be organized that assessor will check only process descriptions and procedures and instructions on the company level. Mostly all the interviews are done in several ways. Individual interviews, collective interviews that when we have a lot of participants, and possible demonstrations, like assessor can ask, okay, can you demonstrate me how this is done in your project, this company standard? Then, after having all the collected evidences on the assessment and in the written form, which is really important because without having written notes, without having written evidences that there are some weaknesses or strengths of the project, we cannot give the judge. There is no possibility to make a report of the assessment. It means that co-assessors or the people who are taking the notes must have very precise statements. What are the objectives and what are the key weaknesses which are discovered in the interviews? It should be that those notes are fully objective and that there are no such questions which will lead the the ones who are under interview to already understand that you're leading them in the really wrong direction and that you're emphasizing that they are doing wrong. It means that all the assessment notes must have some key keywords which are giving the possibility to extract from there the real objectives. In the consolidation phase, why I explained this before, the consolidation phase is because all of those notes will be then taken into consideration. All the people who were part of the assessment round will be excluded, and only assessors, lead assessor and co-assessor, will be in the session when they need to consolidate all the notes and all the ratings that they are thinking about. It means that there is a possibility that according to the already known modules and known tools for giving the rating for some processes, they consolidate and give the rating. Or it could be that the lead assessor, by knowing some facts and figures, will give the final statement, what is the rating. In the last performing the assessment sub-phase, feedback and evaluation, the assessment team will explain what are the brief results from the consolidation, and then the assessment team must explain what are the things that lead them to such a ratings. It means that they need to give opportunity to all of the assessed people to understand why the weaknesses or strengths are discovered through the interview. The main thing which I didn't mention is that in the consolidation period, the assessors must have all the notes on the paper, and that this consolidation can be done after each session, after each process, or after each day. It is not important when it happens, but it is important that the one whole let's say chapter is done, or that some bigger topic is finished. In the feedback, there should be also the presentation, not only the conversation about feedback. It should be that really clearly assessors should really explain in the presenting mode what is the major weakness of the project. Now let's talk about issuing the assessment report. There are two sub-phases of the issuing of the assessment report. First one is drawing up the assessment report, and another one is drawing up the assessment log. The first one means that results for drawing the assessment report must be somehow derived from the process profiles, from the capability profiles, from the process weaknesses, strengths, improvement suggestions, and similar, and from the ratings for the indicator and some objectively written notes. And it is also good that assessor gives some comparison to other results if applicable. For example, previous organizational assessments, what was before and what is now, and how we improved or how we degraded as a company. All those things will be part of the assessment report. Assessment report must include a lot of information, and the goal of an assessment report is not to prioritize the improvements which are given to the assessed party, but and not to provide the action plan. It is only to really discover where we are in the processes, how a company is performing, and how mature the processes are. This will help the team who will lead the later on the process improvement and action plan for improvement to derive some immediate action items. After having the assessment report with all the notes, with all the objectives and all the ratings, there is possibility to start performing improvement phase. As I said already, there are 3 phases which are agreeing to the process improvements, performing the improvement actions, and tracking the process improvement. In the first phase, we need to consider what are those improvements, and we need to think about in the direction, do we have the criteria for monitoring such improvements? Then we need to allocate responsibilities to perform the improvements and to specify when we want to finish such improvements, which is really important, especially for the PDCA cycle, which we already mentioned in the beginning of this course. Then in the performing the improvement action, we have these 2 sub-steps, which are saying that we need to start from performing the immediate actions, the ones which are, let's say, a low-hanging fruit. Then we need to perform the whole process improvement actions. On the end, we need to track constantly all of the improvements and to check if corrective actions which we proposed and which we pulled are now really efficient, and if not, we can adjust them. As I already said, after receiving the assessment report, the improvement part is now related to the one being assessed. This is not really there is no any connection with assessor or with some third party body. Now it is the time that internally the company should start with agreeing on the improvement actions and what are really important improvement actions to be taken. Then to specify really the criteria and who are the people who will perform such a improvement. Of course, all those improvements must go through the tool like PDCA. Furthermore, if we want to match the performance of the improvement actions and tracking the improvement actions, we can say that performing immediate actions and performing process improvement actions are related to the phase 2 in the PDCA. The tracking of the improvement actions is basically part of the check state of the PDCA. Now, when we know what are the similarities in the assessment process and what are the basic steps while performing the assessment, we now can pull also the differences in assessments of Automotive SPICE and ISO 26262. The differences are obvious. The Automotive SPICE process assessment model is intended for use when performing conformant assessment of the process capability on the development of embedded automotive system. It was developed in accordance with the requirements of ISO 33004. SPICE deals with the assessment of software and system processes as main purpose. Electrical and or mechanical hardware is not in the scope of Automotive SPICE, although it is supported by the plug-in concept. In contrast, ISO 26262 focus on electronic systems. The standard covers system concept, system development, hardware development, and software development, as well as production and operation. ISO 26262 assessment can be combined with Automotive SPICE or can use the outcomes of Automotive SPICE assessment. And ISO 26262 is intended to be applied to the safety relevant system, which is including only safety aspects, not the overall like as SPICE will do. ASPICE will check the overall concept and the overall framework of the processes, and it will not be focused on any of the specific safety or QM unit. On the end, we can summarize like this. Requirements from ISO 26262 are saying that we need to check what and how in the both way, that we need to check hazard analysis and risk assessment, that we need to check all the aspects of the safety. And on the other hand, requirements from Automotive SPICE will check only what, and they will check, for example, processes like project management, configuration management, quality assurance, and all engineering processes. Well, together, when we check both of the aspects of requirements from ISO 26262, and if we combine them with the requirements from Automotive SPICE, we will have the whole management of functional safety. It means that, as I already said, by having very strictly and maturely introduce Automotive SPICE, you can rely that most of the processes which are not in the scope of ISO 26262 assessment will be in place. Let's prepare for the exercise. You will receive for the next exercise the scenario and the interview objectives, which will be part of your exercise. You need to read those interview objectives and to try to find the weaknesses which are related to the ASPICE PAs and GPs and BPs. It means that by reading the scenario, you will then identify what are the major points for ASPICE processes, and if there are some weaknesses, you should really derive them. This will help you in the exam as well.